Hello everyone, welcome to the Anatomy Lab. Today we're going to be looking at the upper extremity. Now before we start, let's orient ourselves to the different regions that we have here. So starting at the most proximal point of the upper extremity, this is called the shoulder. The shoulder is going to be including three bones in its joint. That is going to be between the clavicle, the scapula, and the humerus, which is inside of here. This is going to be mostly responsible for gross movement of almost the entire arm or upper extremity. Moving distally down here, this is going to be considered your arm. Now, saying arm, you probably have heard of it as being used for the entire structure that you see here, but in the case of anatomy, we're going to be a little bit more specific, meaning that it's going to be only between the shoulder here and the elbow here. So everything between these 2 points is going to be your arm. Moving further distally, that is where you have your forearm, which is going to be between your elbow and your wrist. So make sure that you can distinguish between arm and forearm because we are going to be calling them different things regarding movements. And then lastly, at the most distal point, you have your hand as well as your digits or your fingers. So now that we're oriented, let's take a look at the muscles starting at the shoulder. So this muscle right here is called the deltoid or your shoulder cap. Make sure that you can identify it, and it's pretty easily identified based off of its shape and location. So it's at the very proximal end of the upper extremity, and it is triangular shaped. It is shaped for its name, the deltoid, which is delta shaped like a triangle. So as you can see, it starts up here, goes across, and then down to the point, and then back up to its original point. This triangle, or this delta, is your deltoid. Now something else that you may notice is that it has fibers located or oriented in different directions. You have fibers here at the front. These are called the anterior fibers of the deltoid. It is going to be responsible for shoulder flexion as well as medial shoulder rotation like this. These, which are the most lateral and pointed laterally, these are going to be the middle fibers of the deltoid. These will be helping with shoulder abduction. And lastly, on this side, on the posterior side, you have the posterior fibers of the deltoid. These will be responsible for lateral shoulder rotation, as well as shoulder extension. So this is the deltoid. Make sure that you can identify the different regions and know the different actions as well. Moving down from the shoulder to the arm, that is where you get to a lot of muscles that you probably heard of. The one that you probably know the best is called the biceps brachii here. So if we move the deltoid out of the way, you could see that it has two attachments here. This is for its two bodies. So biceps is referring to two bodies. Biceps, biceps bodies. And then brachii is referring to the arm. Now brachii is a word that you're going to be hearing repeatedly for structures found in the arm because brachii is referring to the arm. So that tells you a lot, or the name tells you a lot about the muscle itself. Biceps, two bodies, brachii on the arm. So going back to biceps really quickly, you can see that it has two different attachments and it's going to do various different actions as well. So you can see an attachment up here across the shoulder and an attachment down here across the elbow. That is going to mean that it's going to allow it to move the shoulder as well as move the elbow. So the biceps brachii will allow for shoulder flexion, which is due to this up here, elbow flexion, which is due to this down here, as well as supination. So really quickly, let's go over the action of elbow flexion. Elbow flexion is referring to movement of this joint, and flexion is regarding decreasing in angle. So that's when you go from a large angle to a smaller angle. So when you go from straight elbow to bent elbow, that is the action of the biceps brachii, which is elbow flexion. But also, supination is something that you're also going to see, which is when you go from palm down to palm up. So palm up as in you're holding a bowl of soup. So when you do this, you'll also feel or see your biceps brachii contracting. So try those out at home, and you should be able to see your biceps brachii acting or contracting. So moving on with the muscles of the arm, located a little bit medially over here, this slender muscle next to the short head of the biceps brachii is going to be the Coracobrachialis. The Coracobrachialis is also going to tell you a lot through its name. Coraco may sound familiar, as in like the coracoid process of the scapula. That is where it's going to be originating up here. So this right here is the coracoid process of the scapula. And you can see that actually two things are originating here: the short head of the biceps brachii, as well as the Coracobrachialis. Now brachialis is also going to tell you something too, meaning that it's going to be on the arm or moving the arm. So the Coracobrachialis located here is going to allow you to flex your elbow as well as flex your shoulder or adduct your shoulder. Now moving to one deep muscle rather, you have your brachialis. So your brachialis muscle is located right here underneath your biceps brachii. This muscle, situated pretty much on the middle or starting at the middle of your humerus, is straight in the middle of your arm. Brachialis is telling you arm once again. So brachialis, it's on the middle of the arm. And as you can see, it also goes down to your elbow, just like your biceps brachii, meaning that it's going to have a similar action. And in this case, it's going to have one of the same actions, as in flex your elbow. So from long angle or big angle to small angle. Moving over to the posterior side of the arm, that is where we have one muscle with three parts. It is called the triceps brachii. So that probably sounds familiar, kind of like this one. But instead of biceps, this is triceps, like a tricycle. So triceps means that there are three parts. There is the long head of the triceps brachii, the lateral head of the triceps brachii, the long head of the triceps brachii, and the medial head of the triceps brachii. There are three bodies to this muscle. But regarding its actions, you can also see that it's going across the shoulder as well as across the elbow. This is going to allow it to extend the shoulder as well as extend the elbow. And something that you may have noticed is that it's on the opposite side as where you'd find the biceps brachii, meaning that a lot of its actions will be opposite to what the biceps brachii does, kind of like, well, in the elbow. Instead of elbow flexion, the triceps brachii is going to do elbow extension. So in that case, you're going to go from a bent elbow to a straight elbow. And those are the muscles that we're going to be taking a look at in the arm. We'll look at the rest of the upper extremity a little bit later, but thank you for listening. Great job so far, and see you next time.